Hello and welcome to another episode of the Top Dogs podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. My name is Rob Doster, and we got a big one coming up on Wednesday night. It is tomorrow as of the time of this recording. UConn is going to be taking on Arizona in Gamble Pavilion in a matchup between a pair of AP top 5 teams this season. I think the biggest thing to note here, well, let's start with this. Arizona's sitting here at 4-0 right now. They look every bit the part of a top 5 team. They beat UCLA by 4, coming back from down by 8 with 5 minutes left in a game that was played in LA on Friday night. They beat Florida on the first night of the season, 93-87, in a game that was a little bit more open. But all in all, this Arizona team has 2 of the better wins that we've seen in college basketball this season, beating 2 top 25 teams and 2 very good coaches that play with a little bit of a similar style, I would say. Both of those teams, Florida and UCLA, tend to go with 3 bigs at this point in the season, playing kind of a stretch 4 at the 3 spot with Tommy Hawk and Xavier Booker. So I think that that's something that's going to come into UConn's advantage here, but I'll get to that in a second. Let's start with kind of a little bit of a scouting report. I'm sure a lot of fans already know what it is. For me, the best player for Arizona so far this season has been their point guard, Jaden Bradley. He scored 15 of his 27 in the second half against Florida to lead them to a win. He had 11 straight in the last 5 minutes against UCLA and scored 12 of his 16 points in the second half, as Arizona, like I said, came from 8 down with 5 minutes left to beat UCLA in Los Angeles. So I think the single most important thing for UConn to do is slow him down, especially in crunch time. He is the guy that they go to when it's winning time. He is the guy that they run offense through when it's nut cutting time. He is the guy that is going to be their closer, so to speak. I think Silas Demery is a perfect matchup for him. I think Silas Demery is good enough to win that matchup. And I think that we will learn a lot about where this UConn team is and where Silas specifically is with the way that he plays against Jaden Bradley after playing against Robert Wright. They're both talented, but they're different guards. Jaden's a little stronger, a little more powerful, less of a shooter, more of a rim attack guy. So keeping him out of the paint is going to be big. I also think that this is a very, very different matchup from BYU because of the way that Arizona wants to play, right? They want to go inside. They want to do the high-low stuff. They want to run stuff through Koa Peat and Mateus Krivas inside. They want to be able to score from inside the lane and close to the rim. You know, Arizona is a team that is shooting 40% from 3 right now, but they don't shoot a lot of them. Only 27% of their field goal attempts come from beyond the arc, which is like 320th nationally. You got to be able to make sure that you close off the paint against them. Whereas BYU was more a little bit of one-on-one stuff. You got to deal with some of their actions on the perimeter. You got to chase them off the 3-point line, and you got to be able to guard one-on-one. I think it's a little bit less of that today. But yeah, you got to make sure that Koa Peat sees too. You got to make sure that Jaden Bradley's not getting into the lane, and you got to run, Anthony Del Orso off the 3-point line. The one big thing in that game against UCLA was UCLA had Arizona on the ropes a little bit in the first half. It was 15-5, I believe. They were up by 10, and Del Orso came in and got cooking. I think he scored 13 in the first half. He scored 20 in the game. He is the guy that's the real dangerous 3-point shooter. Brandon Burries is fine. He's the guy you don't want to get hot, but Anthony Del Orso was the veteran. He's the guy that's dealt with an environment like what they're going to go into. That's the thing that's going to be hard about this for Koa and Braden is they are freshmen. They're going to be walking into a building that is going to be sauced up, that is going to be fired up, that is going to be loud and emotional and filled to the absolute rafters, and that is going to be a buzz. So that is Gamble, when it is at its best, is a nightmare to go play for any opponent. And I do think that when you factor in that this is the first time that 2 of their best players have experienced anything like this, that is a big ask on the road. Let's talk a little bit about how those 2 matches played out. I thought that Arizona looked much better against Florida than they did against UCLA, and I thought that's because UCLA had a little bit of a better game plan on the defensive end. What UCLA did was they tried to make Koa Peat see two every time, right? They wanted to make sure that they had help there. They wanted to make sure that they packed the paint. They wanted to make sure that they made him make a decision, right? They wanted him to think a little bit more as opposed to getting a short roll, catch, and kind of play with space, right? He's got to see bodies in front of him. He's got to see hands in front of him. He's got to see physicality. Um, I think that's where it starts, right? And I would say that this is a matchup that is again different from BYU in that this is when you need Alex Karaban to show up and be a very good defender and show up and be the guy that we've seen in flashes be impactful on the defensive end. This is not a matchup for Stewie or Jaden Ross on Koa Peat. Um, if you need to kind of put into context and you haven't really seen Koa play, there's a little bit of Bryce Hopkins in his game. It's not a perfect comp. Bryce is more of like a three that plays the four, whereas Pete is more of an out and out power forward. But both love operating kind of in that mid post area. Both are supremely strong and physical scorers. Both of them can put a shoulder in your chest and finish through you. Both of them are really good at like whether their jab series, trying to create angles, trying to get space, finishing around the basket. Pete is I think Bryce is probably a little bit more of an ISO guy, whereas Pete is a little bit better, like I said, playing out of ball screens and playing out of short rolls and being set up to be effective that way. But they're both powerful and strong and very, very difficult matchups for a guy like Alex Karaban. Uh, Alex has the length, right? And I said this the other day on the podcast. I think Alex is probably at his best when you're using him as the switchable guy in those ball screens because I think his length allows him to play a little bit off of guards and he moves his feet well enough that he can stay in front of smaller defenders. And because he's got like a 7'3" wingspan or whatever it is, he's able to contest on 3-pointers. And it makes him a much better defender switching into those matchups and playing on the perimeter. I don't think that he is great when he goes up against guys that will be able to play him as physically as someone like Koa Peat does. He's just not as strong as them. You know, he's like 220 pounds. He's given up 15 pounds. He doesn't have the strongest center of gravity. And because of his length, when people play through him, sometimes he kind of gets knocked off balance. When you get hit in the chest and your arms come down like this a little bit, it can force you to pick up some fouls. So this will be a really good test for senior Alex Karaban. This will be a really important matchup for him. And I think that he is the guy that gets that first call. And if he's your senior and your leader and the guy that I think has been probably UConn's best player so far this season, he's got to answer the bell. He's got to answer the call on this one. And I think that he will, especially because I believe UConn will be able to send some help. Like I said, you can make sure that Terrace Reed is at the rim because Krivas and Toby Awaka are not spacing the floor. I would feel fairly comfortable about helping off of Jaden Bradley right now. I think that if I am UConn and even if you want to send doubles, I think that they are good enough playing out of rotation and in a scramble setting that I think that is a better option. And allowing them to try to swing the ball and take open catch and shoot threes with the likes of Karchenkov, who has not been great this year, and Braden Burries, who hasn't made a three this year, or hasn't really shot the three well so far this year. So that's probably what I would do. I'll be very curious to see what the game plan is defensively for UConn. I also think it's important to note, like we talked a little bit about having like that kind of big wing matchup and the importance of slowing down AJ. AJ and Koa are entirely, they kind of play similar positions, but they're entirely different players in how they play. AJ is a guy that is more perimeter oriented, that is a little bit quicker, that is not as his power comes from his ability to cover ground, come to a jump stop, stay balanced, and elevate over you, right? He makes shots that are unguardable. Whereas Koa Peat's power kind of comes from the fact that he is physical and he can go through you. And you can, if you let him get to his spot, he's going to go through you instead of elevate over you. And I think that makes him a guy that will be a very difficult cover for Jalen Stewart and Jaden Ross. And frankly, like there really isn't anybody else on this roster that I think makes sense to guard to guard Koa Peat. Like if there's one thing that we don't really have a backup for, it is Alex Karaban at the four. Stewie can do a little bit of a job there, and Jaden Ross can do a little bit of a job there. But Dwayne Caroma, like this might be a game where he sees some minutes because of the fact that he's athletic and he's physical and he's just another body that you can throw at him that I think is probably a better matchup than Jalen Stewart or Jaden Ross, just because I don't think that you can ask Jaden Ross to guard a 6'8", 235-pound son of an offensive lineman. That is not a matchup that you want to be able to put him in. I think I think the biggest thing too is once you send help to Koa Peat, you have to stay out of foul trouble. You have to do it because so much of what Arizona did offensively, especially against Florida, so much of their success comes from getting to the foul line, right? They were able to foul out Alex Condon and Ruben Chinyelu. A lot of that was Koa Peat. A lot of that was Jaden Bradley. Um, they were not able to get UCLA's front line in as much foul trouble. And I thought that UCLA had a much, much better time on the defensive end of the floor than Florida did. Now, again, a large part of that is because UCLA has older, more veteran and more physical defenders in their backcourt than Florida does. Like Sky Clark, a lot of people make jokes about Sky Clark throughout his career. Sky Clark has turned into a really, really good kind of 3-and-D role playing piece, and I thought that he did a really good job for about 35 minutes. Him and Donovan Dent making sure that Jaden Bradley did not get it going. That is where the value is going to come in for Silas Demery. He has to make sure Jaden doesn't get paint touches. He has to make sure he does it without causing foul trouble. Alex Karaban has to make sure that Koa Peat has a really difficult time. Um, and I think that sending help and making sure Alex doesn't get in foul trouble is big. And then the next part about it is you got to get on the defensive glass, right? They have guys that can go and get offensive rebounds, that can get second chance points. You got to make sure that you clean that up. Terrace will be big today. Eric Ribo, when he's going to get his minutes, is going to be really big today. Krivas he's talented. He's a good player. He's really, really big. But if you can keep him from getting angles and getting exactly where he wants to be in the post, I think that he is a guy that you can limit a little bit in terms of what his effectiveness is going to end up being. So I think that is a fairly good matchup for Terrace Reed, because if there's one thing Terrace can do, it's kind of be in a spot and not get pushed off that spot. Man, he's so freaking strong. But that it's a long-winded way of saying you have to make Arizona beat you with their first shot, right? Don't let them get to the foul line and get easy points. Don't let them foul your guys out because they have matchups there they can take advantage of your bench. Don't give them second chance opportunities, because I do think that they're going to be they're going to struggle a little bit to get those first shot opportunities. It's more of a system thing when it comes to what Arizona wants to do offensively, right? Like against BYU, there were a lot of sets that you ran and a lot of plays that you ran, and the sets were designed to be able to get a player in an isolation situation, whether that's Richie Saunders running off of a staggered or a double pin down or some floppy action, and either get him running into a catch and shoot three or kind of isolated against a guy trailing him on his back. Some of it was getting Robert Wright into a situation where he's isolated, and a lot of it was let's find a way to be able to get AJ DeBonsa in a spot where he's in the slot one-on-one and can take advantage of the fact that he is absolutely unguardable when he decides he wants to be. Whereas what Arizona does, it's really similar to a lot of the stuff that Gonzaga runs. There's a lot of ball screens, a lot of getting out in transition, a lot of trying to get early seals. And if they don't get those early seals and early duck-ins, running ball screen action to be able to find a way to create an open shot for somebody on the wing, get someone like a Jaden Bradley turning the corner and go to the basket, or getting Koa Peat in a short roll or kind of mid-post action against a defense that had just been put into rotation or put on the move. So being able to eliminate some of the stuff that they run and some of their actions and some of the ways that they create offense is going to be really, really big. The biggest reason, and here's where I think UConn's biggest advantage is, right? I don't know how Arizona stops them. They're going to have, if I'm looking at this right, they're probably going to end up with freshmen guarding two of UConn's best shooters, probably UConn's two best shooters. They're going to have Koa Peat, who has never really, I doubt he's ever really had to chase shooters off of screens, running around trying to chase Alex Karaban off of ball screens. If he's not running around chasing Alex Karaban off of ball screens, he's going to be in a switching 1 through 4 defense where he is going to have to process who is picking up who with the really complicated misdirections and really complicated sets that UConn runs. That's not easy to do. We saw AJ DeBonta struggle with that, and AJ DeBonta is probably more cerebral than you realize on the defensive end of the floor. The same thing can be said for Braden Burries having to guard solo ball. He's going to be running off of tons of screens. He's going to have to deal with a ton of off ball movement and a ton of off ball action and a ton of situations where he's putting the decision of, do I have to be the helper and the tagger here, or am I chasing this guy that was the best shooter in the Big East last season off of the screen onto the perimeter? And again, if it's a situation where you got to switch, you're going to be playing in front of the probably the loudest arena that either of them have ever been in Gamble Pavilion in this situation, and that is not going to be an easy thing to do. So if UConn can make shots and get going early, then get that crowd behind them. It's going to be a massive advantage. And I think that AK has a big game because this is a matchup that he can win on the offensive end. And hell, I think there's a world where he is able to get Koa Peat into foul trouble. It's not like we haven't seen Alex Karaban find a way to be able to, like, he's got that weird little like pump fake jab step thing where he can take one dribble and kind of awkwardly make his way to the basket and cover ground and pick up a foul. Like, he does that pretty well. He's gotten to the free throw line 10 times so far this season as a guy that is probably like a majority jump shooter. So he's not, that's not the offense that you run for, and you probably aren't building out sets to be able to get him to the free throw line, but it's something that he is capable of doing when he needs to. So I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world to think that he might be able to get Koa Peat into foul trouble as well. Um, I think Solo Ball is going to have a massive day. He has gotten a ton of open looks so far this season and is shooting 30.8% from beyond the arc. He is too good of a shooter to do that. He is too good of a player to do that. He is going to be coming into a home environment that is going to be raucous. He's a guy that has a reputation for kind of being a big game, big shot, big moment player. This is a massive moment coming off of a couple of frustrating, well, I would say a really frustrating game against BYU where he was in foul trouble, and a really disappointing kind of way that he finished that game in terms of the shots that he missed. He had a couple of wide open looks that were way off. I think that rights itself. I think it corrects itself tonight. I think we see some serious regression to the mean with Solo and his shooting ability. And I think that he like this. I think this is going to be like a 6 or 7 3-point night for Solo, like scoring 25. And I think Alex is going to have a really big game as well. Terrace will be tough just because of the matchup that he has, right? Like Toby, his strength is his strength, right? And Mateus Krivas is just a mountain of a human being, and Toby Awaka is as strong as anybody that you're going to find in college basketball. So I don't think that we're going to see him go off for like 25. Like, I don't think this is one of the games where everything you run is to get him the ball in the post. But if Arizona decides, hey, we're switching everything, this is how we're going to end up playing, you're going to have lots of opportunities for seals and chances for Terrace to go one-on-one on the block. So as far as Silas Demery is concerned, like he's got to win the matchup with Jaden Bradley. They both kind of have been similar this season, right? Where they're athletic, they're paint touch guys, and they've played their best in the last 5 or 6 minutes of the biggest games that their teams have played. He is a takeover guy, just like Jaden Bradley is a takeover guy. He is a winning time guy, just like Jaden Bradley is a winning time guy. And look, Jaden Bradley, if you're doing All Americans at this point in the season, I think Jaden Bradley is very much in the All American conversation at the point guard spot because of how big he's been in big moments. Silas is going to win. Silas has to win that matchup, and I think he is going to win that matchup. Let's keep the hot start going for Jaden Ross. I'd love to see Stewie knock down a couple more threes. Ryba's going to have to come in and play minutes in this game just because of the size of Arizona and the fact that there's going to be some fouls called on Terrace. It's going to happen. So the bench is going to have to be big today. But again, if If Solo Ball makes the open threes that he's going to get, and he's going to get them, and if Alex Karaban makes the threes that he gets, and he's going to get them, then UConn should be able to open up a lead. And if they open up a lead and that place gets rocking, I think that this is something where it could snowball. So make your open shots, don't foul, get on the defensive glass. It's an easy game, man. It sounds a lot easier than it actually is to do all that stuff. But I'm feeling reasonably confident about this matchup and about the way this is going to play out. The projection on KenPom is 82-77. And I will say, I think that I would probably lean to the UConn side if it's UConn -5. I think that that's probably it. I'm going to stay away from the total just because I think that this is going to be played at a little bit of a slower pace. Arizona averages about is like top 60 in possessions per game so far. UConn's it's changed a little bit. They're up to almost 70 possessions per game, which is 250th in the country. But I think that this is something where I don't know if they're going to try to run. I would stay away from the total. I don't really have a good feel for that right now. But I do think that UConn finds a way to be able to win this. I think it ends up being somewhere in the neighborhood of like 80-68 when it's all said and done. So going to be a great atmosphere, going to be a great game, top 5 matchup in an on-campus building, and UConn is involved. You can't ask for much more than that in the 3rd week of November. Might not be a feast week matchup that we're getting, but it is a feast week quality game that we are getting. So roll skis, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday night after the game for a reaction podcast. Thanks for being here.
As you know by now, we have teamed up with BetMGM again this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we will have special offers for Field of 68 fans, including same-game parlays, best-in-class live betting, and daily odds boost. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code FIELD to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app, you sign up using bonus code FIELD, you deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Make this college basketball season one for the history books. Make it legendary. And don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code FIELD and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
There is no sport in America that is more difficult to follow than college basketball. It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for injury updates, recruiting news, and transfer portal additions that actually matter. For just $50 a year, get access to the same information that your favorite team's coaching staff is subscribed for. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help you.